right, today we're going to talk about Egyptian achievements. Yesterday we talked about Egyptian history, which I went over about 3,000 years of history, and it was a lot. Now, the main things we have to remember from yesterday: when were the pyramids built?
Old Kingdom.
The Old Kingdom. When we talk about the three main people, we have to remember Hatshepsut. What was she famous for?
First female ruler.
First female pharaoh. How did she influence Egyptian power and prestige?
She expanded the Egyptians' power by trading.
By trade.
Not
Good.
by warfare.
She had some, but mostly through trade. Then we're going to talk. We talked about King Tut. Why was King Tut famous? His was the only tomb that wasn't broken into and robbed. Had all kinds of stuff in it, right? He wasn't that important of a pharaoh in history. He died very young, but his tomb is the only royal tomb not broken into. And so we learned a lot about them from his tomb. Good. The next guy we talked about was Ramses II. Why was he famous?
Because he lived to 99 and had a lot of kids.
He's lived to 99. He had 150 kids. How long did he rule? 67 years, correct. How did he influence Egyptian power? Ramses II. Not through trade, but through warfare. Very good. So I feel like you've got that covered pretty good. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the Egyptian achievements. Now, we've already talked about Mesopotamian achievements. They invented the wheel. They invented the potter's wheel. They invented irrigation. We're going to talk a lot about Egyptian stuff today. But before we do that, let's go back to some things we've learned about earlier in the year. What materials did early man use for tools and weapons?
Stone, wood, ivory, bone, and
Antlers. Stone, bone, antler, ivory, and wood. Does everybody remember that? Good. Who was the most powerful person in any Mesopotamian city-state? The king. What did a Mesopotamian city-state look like?
it had a wall around.
Had a wall around it?
Had a ziggurat in the middle.
Ziggurat in the middle?
And outside the walls were like farms.
Outside outside the walls were farmland. They all were built near what?
Rivers.
Near a river. Very good. Who served the Pharaoh?
Everyone.
Everyone. What is the longest river in the world?
The Nile.
The Nile River. Very good. Next. So Egyptian achievements. After this, then we'll have 44 left for the year. We're doing good. Next. So what have we done in the United States that would influence people for all time? Tell me some things we've either invented, made better, or some idea we've had.
We've created all people are equal.
We created all people are being equal and everybody having equal rights under the law. Yes, we wrote our Constitution. Yes.
We created democracy.
We did not create democracy. Oh, we're going to talk about that later. What about the computer? The airplane?
Technology.
Telephone? The light bulb? Harnessing electricity? We've done all of those things. Yes? First man on the moon, absolutely. So we've done a lot of things in America that will influence people from all time. The reason I've got your brain going to that is we're going to talk about what the Egyptians have done to influence people for all time. Next. So our essential question, how does achievement influence others? So the reason we talk about these achievements of the Egyptians is because it influences people moving forward for all time. Next. What are we doing? We're examining the achievements of the ancient Egyptians. Next. Why? To test the standard. And it is important to know how we are influenced, even in small ways, by the civilizations of the past. We will do this for every civilization this year. This is our second. Next. So how do we define Egyptian inventions today? Well, they were a civilization for 3,000 years. A lot of their inventions and innovations were created, then lost, and then rediscovered by other people. For example, the Greeks give themselves credits for inventing math. We know they didn't do that. They built on what the Egyptians had done. The Egyptians were probably taught to them by the Israelites. The Israelites learned it in Mesopotamia. So math is one thing that we say the Egyptians did great. They had to have done great. They couldn't have built those things, but they didn't invent it. After all, we have taken things that other people have created and made them better. That's what Americans do. Next. So the first thing we have to agree on is before all this started was smelting metal. You had to be able to smelt metal first. 3000 BC appears to be a critical time for the development of technology, especially in metal making. The Egyptians, as well as the Mesopotamians, independently discovered that by heating copper ore, they could make tools and weapons from it. This set off a chain of connected innovations that could not have happened without metal first. What was the first metal they used?
Copper.
Copper. What was the next metal they later used?
Bronze.
Who did they learn that from? The Hyksos. Good. Next. So the first thing we always talk about, when we talk about the Egyptians, the first thing you always think about is what?
The pyramid.
Pyramids, right? Everybody thinks about the pyramids first. Probably the pyramids, then probably hieroglyphics, right? So if you have a question on the test that says, where were the pyramids built? They were built in Egypt. When were they built? The Old Kingdom, right? How were they built? Well, they brought blocks up the Nile and they dragged them and put them into place. Everybody agree?
Yes.
So the pyramids were the first monumental buildings. What is a monument?
Something that, like an important statue or like an
Okay.
important building.
First thing we have to know about monuments,
They're big.
they're big. They're big buildings or creations that honor or represent something. You all agree? Do we have monuments in America?
Yes.
Of course we do. We have the Washington Monument, which we'll talk about later. We have the Lincoln Memorial. We have Mount Rushmore. We have the Statue of Liberty. Right? So we have monuments. The Egyptians were the first ones to build big monument buildings. Now, were ziggurats big monument buildings? No, they were what? They were houses for the gods. They weren't monuments of anything. Okay? So there are close to 80 pyramids found in Egypt today that were built when?
Old Kingdom.
They were all built in the Old Kingdom. Next. So there's the Great Pyramids of Giza. To put in perspective how big those buildings are, those are two dudes walking. Okay? Yeah, they're big. They're very, very big. And they're precise. Precise. Next. That's the Red Pyramid of Sneferu. Why do they call it that?
Because it looks red.
Because it looks like
What is it?
dark blocks. Next. There's the Bent Pyramid. They built this at the wrong angle. And they're like, oh no, we built this at the wrong angle. And so they had to fix it. Yeah, next. The next thing most people will think about when they think about the Egyptians are hieroglyphics. That is picture writing. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay? It's picture writing. Now, was that their everyday writing? No. They had regular writing like we had, but unlike all other ancient civilizations, they did not get rid of their picture writing. They kept it. They kept it to use for ceremonial or for special occasions. All the hieroglyphics are on all those monumental buildings. Okay, when we find papyrus, that usually has their script written out on it. We could read both, so we know what they say, but the hieroglyphics were special. Okay, next. There's some hieroglyphics. Why does that still have paint on it? How is that possible? Yes, it was preserved well because it's so dry. It's so dry. And if you have things painted on the inside in Egypt, that paint's not going anywhere. If it's on the outside, boom, paint's going to be gone in 20 years. Why?
Because sand.
Because of sand. The wind blowing the little sand particles will just chip that paint away. But if it's put on the inside, chances are that paint's going to last a long time. For example, next, look,
Oh, wow.
original paint.
Is that King Tut's tomb?
That is not King Tut's tomb. That is much, much better. King Tut's tomb is not that great.
Oh.
Now, here's some that's on the outside. We can still read that. We still know what it says, but all the beautiful paint, obviously, gone after a few years. Next. That is under a microscope.
Ooh.
That is someone who did something so small with a needle, probably. Who probably did that? A scribe, right?
Yeah.
How good were they?
Oh, perfect.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Next. The next most famous thing, or probably the most important thing that they invented, was something called papyrus. Everybody else wrote on clay tablets, or on stone, or on wood, or on animal skins, except the Egyptians invented something called papyrus. It was a plant that you cut open and you got the fibers out and you led them all vertically and then you threaded some through horizontally, you weaved it together, and then it became like paper, like we use today. This was the absolute most important writing material of the ancient world. They sent it all over the ancient world. Everybody used it, and they used it for about 3,000 years until what replaced it? Paper. So if you read in the New Testament, it says Jesus went to the synagogue and opened up the book. That is not what the original says. The original says Jesus opens up the scroll. All the scrolls were on papyrus. Papyrus. And they lasted a long time. Very, very useful. And we can read all that stuff. Why did that stuff not decompose or get rid of it? Yes? Yes, inside is dry. Next. There's some papyrus. There's their hieratic writing. Kimber, can you translate that? No, not yet. Next. There's somebody's math homework. True story.
I can see a triangle.
Yeah, that's definitely somebody's geometry. Yeah, this will need that.
Talk about kids.
Next. There's the page from the Book of the Dead showing somebody being mummified. You see the canopic jars under the table. You also see the monster getting ready to eat the heart right there. Showing you how to do things. Thousands of years old, that is. Next. They also, to go with their papyrus, they invented black ink. Got to write on it, don't you? You know, originally they used soot from fires, and they're like, how do we make this stick? How do we make this last? So you just mix it up with vegetable gum and some beeswax, and then it becomes thick like paint. And then you can make other colors, just put different materials in there, different types of things in there, make other colors. Next. That's kind of what their black ink looked like. Get a little brush or a stick. Next. Now this is not a very accurate representation because nobody would be writing on papyrus in hieroglyphics. Right? The hieroglyphics are carved. The hieratic is what you write in script. Next. They invented the ox-drawn plow. What was that good for, Sean? Okay, for plow the farmland. Why would you use ox? You want to plow with people? Ox are strong. Ox are strong. Next. That's on one of them's walls. You gotta have somebody with some ox planting grain. Next. There it is there too. That's a hard picture to take. There it is in modern times. Next. Other farming proofs, they invented the sickle. The sickle is what you handheld curved blade to reap grain. They invented with Mesopotamia irrigation, which is controlling and moving water. They invented the shadoof, which is a long bucket that you dip into water. It's got a weight on the end of it, so it makes it easier to lift and to turn, and you dump it uphill. Next. There are those things. Sickle on, go back up. Sickle on the top, irrigation on the right, the shadoof on the bottom. Next. They invented the calendar, a solar calendar, with 365 days in a year. They did this by tracking the dog star, the Sirius star, which came out, which was easy to see during flooding season. So they just counted 365 days, and here it is again. So you get your calendar. And 3 seasons based off what? The cycles of the Nile. What's the problem with having 30 days in a month? One, you're going to be 360 days in a year. So you're going to have something to do with those 5 days. So they just had basically a big party. 5-day party at the end of the year. But you still got a problem. Is a year 365 days? No. A year is 365 days and 6 hours.
So you just have to add.
So you have to add a day every 4 years called what?
Leap year.
Leap year. But they didn't do that. They got all messed up until much, much later. Ptolemy III added the 1 day. Of course, that's not accurate either because I think it's 365 days, 6 hours, and 11 minutes. So eventually you have to fix that too. Next. Here's one of their calendars.
Whoa.
Next. There's their hieroglyphic calendar. We've seen that before. Next, they invented the clock. They invented a clock. The main clock that they invented was called an obelisk. We have an obelisk in Elizabethton, right? That's the War Memorial. Okay, an obelisk is a big pillar that looks like this. Okay, it's actually a sundial. So you can judge the sun when the sun comes up. It'll shine and it'll put a shadow right here. You can put on the ground 1 o'clock. Right? What about when the sun's right here? 2 o'clock. Okay, right here. 3 o'clock. And you can do that all the way around to see what time it is. We have the largest obelisk in the world. It's called the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. It's an obelisk. Next. There's an obelisk. Next. They also invented something called the water clock, which is a bucket or a stone vessel that has a little hole in the bottom. How often does the water drip out? Every second. 60 of those. There's a minute. 60 of those. An hour. You can mark it with 12 layers. Now you can keep track of the time at night. Next. Man is smart. Next. They invented police. Now, during the Old and Middle Kingdoms, local officials had their own private police force. But during the New Kingdom, especially after Ramses had conquered Nubia, they began using the best and strongest black Africans from Nubian to become the police, called the Magi. So if you saw a bunch of black people walking down the road, you knew that was the police, and you better not be doing anything wrong. They were armed with staffs and used dogs. Neither rich nor poor citizens were above the law. Who was the law?
The Pharaoh.
The Pharaoh. Now, if you broke the law, the police would also punish you. They could beat you. They could cut your nose off. They could kill you and not give you a proper burial. So you better watch out. Next. How do we know? Because they told us about it. So there's the police. Next. They invented surgery. No anesthetic. Nothing to knock you out. You just took it. They had back surgery. They had head surgery, shoulder surgery. 48 different types of surgery. They had surgical instruments. How do you think that felt? Pretty good, right? Next. Yeah, we know they did that because there's some of their instruments.
Those look dangerous.
Next. They invented wigs. Everybody in Egypt shaved their head. Why?
Too
It was hot. Men, women, children. Especially if you're a poor farmer, you're shaving your head. You're not gonna be out in the sun with hot all day. But if you're a rich person, you shaved your head too. Okay, for one thing, make sure you wouldn't get head lice. Okay, you didn't want that. Another thing, it was hot in Egypt, so you could keep cool by shaving your head. Now, if you wanted to have a dinner party, you just put on a wig. Okay, made out of either human hair or animal hair, it doesn't matter. But that would be like wearing a toboggan. Anybody ever wore a toboggan in the summertime?
Yeah.
You ever smelled it afterwards? Yeah. Not good. So, in order to not have BO on the head, what you would do is they took beeswax, a big glob of beeswax, and they heated it up till it was liquid. Then you take your favorite smelling flowers, and you grind them up, and you mix it with water. What does that become?
Perfume.
Say it.
Perfume.
Perfume. So you take that little mixture and you mix it in with the beeswax and you let that beeswax cool and then you cut it off into little bars like soap and you have a little place on top of the wig that you put that beeswax with the perfume in it and then you're walking around the hot sun and it starts to melt and then you don't smell head BO, you smell perfume. Right? So they invented perfume as well. Next. There's one of their wigs. Yeah.
I see a little place where the style looks.
That's right. It's a good look for her.
That actually kind of looks nice.
Yeah. What about this one? Next. She still looks pretty good, right? Yeah. It's a good looking. Next. The Egyptians invented eye makeup. You would take soot and mix it with galena. That became something called Kohl. Well, there's a store called Kohl's, isn't there? They sell makeup there, don't they? That's where they get the word. They also made green eye makeup by combining malachite with galena to tint the ointment. Both men and women wore it. Anybody play sports? What do you wear? What's this right here?
Eye black.
Eye black. Same thing. Why do you wear it?
So it reflects the sun.
It cuts the glare off the sun. Same reason they wore it. It was like that was like the ancient world sunglasses. Also, if you just looked at somebody, it's called the evil eye. You're afraid somebody's giving you a curse. That's all right. I got my makeup on. It's blocking that curse. Right? Now, of course, that's not real, but they thought it was. What?
Going back to like the wigs and stuff.
Yes.
How did they shave that way?
They with copper razors. They sharpen those copper razors.
Ooh.
Okay. Akin to what a straight razor is now. I have used a straight razor in my life. I've had a straight razor. It's difficult to do, but if you get the angle right, it's a very, very good close shave. It works out good. So did you get it? So tell me one thing Pritchard, tell me one thing that the Egyptians invented. That we talked about today. The plow, wigs, eye makeup.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't know.
The sickle,
The pyramids.
pyramids, perfume,
The clock.
clock,
The surgery.
surgical instruments, good.
Calendar.
Calendar,
Sundial.
sundial clock,
Police.
the police, good. So as we say in my class, go forth and learn because knowledge is
Power.